Hello viewers, I greet you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Allow me to take this opportunity and thank the leadership of ACK St. Joseph of Arimathea for the privilege and honor to speak on caring for people living with special needs during COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Ruth Chomba, a counseling psychologist. In the world we live in, God has manifested himself differently in our lives. We live with persons who are vulnerable and are abled differently. Viewers, these people could be our children, brothers or sisters, parents, friends, or even neighbors. While these people may be having underlying medical concerns, this does not make them vulnerable to COVID. However, some may be having some underlying mental concerns like depressed immunity system or respiratory concerns, which may make them at risk of infections. They require support from other people in order for them to adjust to their social, physical, and spiritual environment. We all recall the guidelines by the Ministry of Health to wash hands, sanitize, wear face masks, and observing social distancing as ways of preventing ourselves from contracting the virus. Viewers, take a moment and reflect on people living with special needs. Ask yourself, how are they coping with this crisis? We have seen well-abled people coping with some of these directives, from inappropriate wearing of face masks to misuse of hand sanitizers. What about people living with special needs? Viewers, an individual with special needs has emotional, mental, or physical challenges. He or she may require assistance in movement, communication, self-care, and in decision making. Clearly, during such a time, such a person requires support from caregivers, family, and to some extent, community, in order for them to adjust to their environment and now to the new COVID health guidelines. Viewers, to drive our point home, some cases of people living with special needs are autism, cerebral palsy, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, multiple sclerosis, Down syndrome, deaf, blind, dementia, or Alzheimer's, to name but a few. It is important to note that these cases differ, with some being mild, others being moderate, while others being severe. Some are common with adults, while others are common with children. And now that COVID-19 is here with us, remember, it doesn't discriminate. We are all at risk of contracting the virus. What are therefore the concerns of people with special needs? Think of disruptions, for example. COVID-19 came unexpectedly in that nobody prepared for it. People living with special needs have some social or personal concerns. This is in that they can no longer visit other people or be visited like they used to. If, for example, in the case of children, they cannot play with their peers like they used to. Education is also of great concern to people living with special needs. Closure of learning institutions has affected them in that they can no longer go on with learning. Online or virtual learning, which is now being embraced by institutions, is therefore not available or affordable to everybody. Primary caregivers who are looking after such children may not be fully equipped with skills in order to attend to the delicate caregiving of these children. The children may also lack some guide through the special mode of learning. Limitation in movement. With the stay-at-home or cessation of movement guideline, people living with special needs are not moving or are not going to places. They can no longer visit other people. An example of people confined on wheelchairs who are able to move, for example, cannot go to places and make it on time. This is due to fear of making it back and avoiding the curfew or being caught up in curfew hours and being made to face the consequences. Blind person also, who's dependent on another person to walk or go to places, may not find such a person due to social distancing. Another concern, viewers, is lack of specialized medical care. Some institutions have either closed or limited the number of patients they are attending to for fear of transmitting the virus. Again, people living with special needs have limited access to specialist medical care. Others, for example, a person in need of physiotherapy may miss out on such a session due to closure of such clinics or postponement of appointments. Loneliness is also bound to set in during such a crisis. People living with special needs may feel excluded from normal life due to the new health guidelines. How they are perceiving this crisis alone may also escalate the feelings of isolation and having to deal with their challenges alone. Resource limitation. COVID-19 was initially seen as a health crisis. Viewers, it has also become an economic crisis, with people losing jobs, others facing salary cuts, and others experiencing low businesses. As time goes by, resources that were available for people living with special needs may run out. And with these resources being scarce, they may not effectively have their medical or other needs met. Communication. Information available on the media is not sufficient for people living with special needs. Take, for example, people who are visually impaired or those who have hearing or intellectual inabilities. This inability to get communication fully delivered and well delivered may leave them with little or no sufficient awareness about coronavirus and how to protect themselves. Viewers, a lot can be done to resolve these concerns. Take, for example, setting up some family routines. Here is whereby families can come up with an example of family meetings whereby they can get to listen to one another, address concerns at hand, get to understand how others are perceiving corona, discuss and alleviate fears and anxieties being experienced. Viewers, if fears and anxieties are noticed, they can be alleviated through giving the right information about coronavirus and emphasizing on the importance of adhering to safety guidelines, because this is the only way one can be sure of safety. Another way of addressing concerns is by having physical care time. According to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, regular exercise can be of huge benefit to both mental and physical well-being of an individual. It is important, therefore, for people with special needs to embrace exercises. They can be guided through some simple exercises like workouts, home workouts, stretches, walks, bicycle riding for those who can. Care should be taken at this point to prevent them from having accidents while exercising at home. To some people living with special needs, music is very inspiring. They should be encouraged to sing or play some musical instruments if they can. Talents among children living with special needs or people living with special needs, viewers, are discovered in such ways. In some cases, it is good to encourage creativity, like art and drawing. This is a good way for an individual to express themselves besides being occupied. Training on life skills, viewers, can help a person living with special needs to protect themselves from being infected with coronavirus. As we know, COVID-19 is a respiratory disease. It can be spread through droplets of an infected person, touching or shaking hands with an infected person, or through getting into contact with contaminated surfaces. In order to protect a person living with special needs, training on simple health care or protective daily skills, such as appropriate washing of hands with soap and water, appropriate wearing of face masks, hand sanitizing, and appropriate coughing and sneezing can prevent the spread of the virus. Proper nutrition and hydration is also vital for people living with special needs. A well-balanced diet is good for healthier and strong immune system. With good immune system, there is a lower risk of chronic illnesses and infectious diseases. We should also avoid exposing people with special needs to infections. This can be done by avoiding or not taking them outside their homes unless when it is very necessary. If they have to, they should always wear face masks. Information provision should be provided in such a way that it is accessible and affordable to people living with special needs. This could be in form of sign language, braille, or messages accompanied by pictures that is appropriate for people living with special needs. Online therapy is also another way of alleviating some of the concerns for people living with special needs. If an individual with special needs shows signs of emotional or behavioral challenges, he or she can be supported through the services of telephone or online platform counselors who offer counseling and psychosocial support as needs may arise. The advantage of online counseling is that the counselors and the client do not have to meet face-to-face for a session. This can be done at the comfort of their homes, wherever they are, and it is also applicable during this time of stay-at-home season. What, therefore, can the community do to help people living with special needs? Proverbs chapter 17 verse 22 says that a joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken heart dries up the bones. Viewers, as we help people with special needs, it is important to exercise acts of kindness and serve them with joy, as this soothes them and lessens their pains. We should also note that besides the COVID-19 pandemic, people living with special needs are also having or maybe experiencing personal challenges. They also sense anxieties around them. They also hear intentions and they see how they are treated. If they are treated right, they will adjust to their new normal positively. Community can also follow health guidelines to observe safety for themselves and for the people living with special needs. It is also good to reach out to people living with special needs, find out how they are doing, and assure them of their love and comfort. Communities should help one another, especially those without food. This can be done through giving donations in form of food, clothing, face masks, or toiletries. Involvement of the church to the people living with special needs is very vital. In Matthew chapter 9, we read about Jesus showing compassion to people living with special needs. He also went ahead and healed them. The same way, the church is emphasizing on caring for people with special needs. At ACK St. Joseph of Arimathea, there are programs that are aimed at reaching out to people living with special needs. There is airing of sermons and weekly devotions aimed at reaching out to people living with special needs to inspire them and give them hope during crisis. They are also being visited as need arises for prayers while observing health guidelines. There is also the Family Life Department, which supports programs for needy cases in form of food, clothing, and toiletries. In conclusion, viewers, we should all adhere to the health guidelines in order to stay safe from contracting the virus. And while at it as caregivers, families, communities, educators, professionals, and the church, let us remember that we can all play roles that can leave a significant impact on people living with special needs. For when we do it to our God. Matthew chapter 25, verse 40.